Hi everyone, it's Liz Morrison. This is week 4 of Culture Responsive Pedagogy, focusing on academic vocabulary. Our essential question for the next 2 weeks is, to what extent can culture responsive academic vocabulary instruction increase student achievement and engagement? The topical questions: how do you select the vocabulary words you are going to teach? How do you teach new or unfamiliar words? How do you assess whether students know the words or own the words? And those are really more reflection questions as we go through the slide presentation. Knowledge and skills. In the next 2 weeks, teachers will know responsive vocabulary instruction is focused on acquisition of word through effective vocabulary strategies, not on memorization. Builds on the conceptual knowledge of the students, basically what they bring to class, which is validating and affirming, an important part of culture responsive pedagogy. And provides planned and explicit synonym and antonym development. You'll be skilled at applying culture responsive academic vocabulary instruction in your classroom. What does culture responsive academic vocabulary include? First, it includes evidence of tiering content vocabulary, evidence of teaching focused vocabulary strategies through the use of the CLR tools Personal Thesaurus and Personal Dictionary, and evidence of reinforcement activity. First, we're going to talk about vocabulary acquisition strategies. Key to word acquisition is the focus on strategies that give the students the tools to attack words they don't know, which includes context clues, word parts, and synonym development. There are 4 basic steps to implement responsive vocabulary. Number 1 is tier the words. Number 2, focus on strategies that lead to acquisition, which include context clues, word parts, and synonyms and antonyms. The use of responsive tools for success, such as a Personal Thesaurus and Personal Dictionary, and reinforcement activities for practice and multiple assessment. Let's take a look at tier the words. First, tier 1 is everyday words. These are words that the students already know, like baby, happy, walk. These words do not need instruction. So we're going to focus on tier 2 words predominantly, and we're going to talk briefly about tier 3 words. Tier 2 words are the academic words. These are high-frequency words used across a variety of domains by mature language users. These include words like maintain, absurd, required, fortunate. These words need intentional and strategic instruction, and they will go in the Personal Thesaurus. One important element here is we want to focus on ownership of the word. In other words, the kids own those words. Tier 3 are content-specific vocabulary words. These are low frequency and limited to a specific domain, like mitosis, exponent, and peninsula. The concept will need to be developed. They're learned to help the kids learn the content knowledge, and this would include the practice of a specific personal dictionary for that content area. So tier 1, everyday words, don't need explicit instruction. Tier 2, academic words, we really want to focus in on these. And of course, tier 3, content-specific vocabulary. So we're going to start with tier 2, academic word selection. For this, you'll want to choose 3 to 7 words per week, depending on your grade level. You're going to choose words that have importance and utility for mature language users. You're going to choose words that have instructional potential. So here's how. You review a reading assignment for the upcoming week. Select 3 to 7 words that are used across domains that show up in the reading. These will be not content specific. So let's take a look at an example. Here's a selection from an 8th grade text. On January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The proclamation, or formal order, declared slaves in all Confederate states to be free. This announcement had little immediate effect on slavery. The Confederate states simply ignored the document. Slaves living in the states loyal to the Union were not affected by the proclamation. Academic vocabulary, content-specific vocabulary. Our Tier 1 academic vocabulary includes the words issued, immediate, and ignored. These are words that kids will see across content areas, and they're used by mature language learners. These are going to go in the personal thesaurus. The Tier 3 content vocabulary includes Emancipation Proclamation and Confederate States. These are very content specific to social studies, and they're going to go in their personal content dictionary for U.S. history in the 8th grade. So the first step that all of us should be doing for academic vocabulary success for all our students is using context clues. If we can increase students' proficiency in learning from the context, even a small amount will greatly increase the number of words student learns. It is therefore vital to provide students with rich, sustained, and powerful instruction on using context clues. So let's take a look at our example. The word we're going to focus on is ignored. The Confederate States simply ignored the document. The kids would look at this and try to determine what that word means by context clues. The Tier 2 word ignored, so let's move with that. This announcement has little immediate effect on slavery. The Confederate States simply ignored the document. Within this, the kids are going to work on trying to figure out what those words mean within the context of the reading. Word parts. To find this, you can look on dictionary.com. It'll tell you where the word came from. This is Latin for ignorare, and it means to not know. Finally, synonyms and antonyms. What's it like? And this is where we come up with a student word. For ignored, a student word example might simply be don't do. So the Confederate States simply did not do the document. They ignored it. The Personal Thesaurus is a CR instructional tool. It builds on the conceptually coded words students already own, like don't do it. Intensive work with synonyms and antonyms, the Tier 2 words provides an expanded vocabulary that contributes to success in the academic curriculum. This also increases student success on standardized tests like the MAP or the ACT. Writing tools to support written language development, and the opportunity to sort of academize slang. So the Personal Thesaurus looks like this. It has a student name at the top. Then in the thesaurus, you'd have several words across a page. The student word for ignore was don't do. So the kids could put that up in the student word, and then a synonym comes from the text. It means ignored. So then the kids would look up additional synonyms or find synonyms throughout the week or year that go with that means don't do. And finally, the antonym is at the bottom. So the opposite of ignore would be the opposite of ignore. And the kids would put down the antonym down there. Synonym development. Responsive vocabulary instruction includes focused, intentional synonym development. Many non-standard language users use one word many ways. Instructional modifications can address this dynamic, and students are able to be more precise language users. Take a look at this example with the word bad. This little boy is bad. Instead, the kids could substitute disobedient. The milk is bad. Possibly sour would be a substitute. I had a bad day, to I had a terrible day. And I feel bad about telling a lie, to I feel guilty about telling a lie. Helping kids expand their academic vocabulary will help them become better readers and better learners. So here's a setup chart for the Personal Thesaurus. I think this is pretty clear. So they want to target the word in context. For example, this is the word tedious. The assignment was so tedious he started to fall asleep. Then the kids would fill in, this is what I think the word means. So this student selected boring. Then they're asked for the context clues that help them guess. And finally, they pick their word as the target word to write on their Personal Thesaurus. The Personal Thesaurus is a tool for developing knowledge of synonyms and antonyms. It should be used within a system of vocabulary instruction. So the kids' word was big here. The vocabulary word that they saw in a text was hefty, and they came up with other synonyms to go with that kid word big. And then, of course, the antonym for this was small. That's kind of what it looks like when it plays out. So Tier 2 instruction has the personal thesaurus, and at this point we're teaching the kids synonyms and antonyms for words that are very academic and they cross disciplines. For the personal dictionary, this is the Tier 3 strategy, and I think many of us are very familiar with this. This is for content-specific words, and instruction will be different from that for academic terms. Students probably will not have their own concept for these words. Unlike the personal thesaurus, a technical definition will be supplied for the term by the teacher, and students must create an illustration and a personal connection. With many of these terms, the teacher is going to have to show some kind of context for the use of that word. You can do this in a variety of ways, through lecture, through video, from text, from photographs, to get the kids to help start owning these content-specific. This is what the personal dictionary looks like. The academic term is written in the first box, and the technical definition is given to the students and they write it in that first box. Under personal illustration, they're going to draw what that looks like. They're going to make some kind of personal connection, and then they're going to come up with their own personal definition. So we've looked at Tier 1. Basically, we don't have to teach it. Well, Tier 2 is academic vocabulary that we're going to be using the personal thesaurus with synonyms and antonyms. And finally, in Tier 3, we use a content-specific personal dictionary. So we also need strategies for reinforcement and practice. Students need multiple opportunities to interact and engage with words. Reinforcement and practice are essential to support students as they are internalizing new words. This way, kids can engage in discussions about new words and concepts. They also help students to further understand the word and be able to apply that word in a variety of contexts. And it's an effective way for teachers to informally assess students, a formative assessment strategy, if you will. These are just several different strategies that you could possibly use. We have vocabulary tic-tac-toe. We have a real simple context clue activity called snowballs. And finally, they have the Shibuya roll call, which I have not personally tried. It looks kind of engaging for kids. So this is just one more strategy that you can check out. So here's your assignment. You're going to complete a list of Tier 2 and Tier 3 words for an upcoming lesson. Try either the personal thesaurus or the personal dictionary. If you're already using these activities, do one of the review activities. So in other words, try like the snowball activity or the vocab tic-tac-toe if you already are using both the personal thesaurus and the personal dictionary. Take a picture of a couple of student work samples, and then you're going to upload those with your reflection on the shared learning space. This week we're using Google Doc, and hopefully it's going to work great. The link is on our webpage site, so you can just click on that. It should take you right to our document. So here's what you're going to do on the shared learning space. You're going to reflect on the essential question. To what extent can culturally responsive academic vocabulary instruction increase student achievement and engagement? And you're going to reflect on classroom application. So what we should see in the Google Learning Space is your reflections with a couple of pictures of student work samples from one of the strategies that you tried. This entire PowerPoint presentation was taken from the document of Shiraki Howley, which is also a link on our website. I hope you find this helpful, and good luck.